Good evening, everyone. I am Diane Hibino of the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County, and I am the moderator for tonight's forum. There are 8 candidates running for 7 seats on the Friendship Heights Village Council. The candidates are Roger Cochetti, Michael Dorsey, Paula Durbin, Michael Measy, Alfred Muller, Bruce Pierney, Melanie White, and Carolina Zumaran Jones. This forum will last about an hour. Each candidate will speak for 1 minute in his or her opening statement, and the order was determined by random drawing. Then the candidates will be asked several questions on different topics and be given either 30 seconds or 60 seconds to respond, depending on the questions. Some of you have already submitted questions, and we will start with those. Thank you. However, attendees may submit additional questions via the chat. Please send them directly to Nancy Soering, not to everyone, because she will be monitoring all of the questions received. We'll ask as many questions as time allows in the hour-long forum, but probably we'll have time for just 1 or 2 additional questions. Remember, the questions should pertain to the Village Council responsibilities and issues and may not be of a personal nature. The order will vary so the candidates won't respond in the same order every time. After about 50 minutes, the candidates will have the opportunity for a closing statement to wrap up their remarks. There will be a time clock for all to see that will show the seconds remaining for the candidate to speak. Please make sure to keep your responses within the allotted time. All those attending tonight must mute their audio so that we can hear the forum without distracting noises. And candidates, when called upon, unmute yourself to speak. And when you finish speaking, please mute yourself again until your next turn to speak. All right, let's begin with opening statements. And we will start off with Paula Durbin. 60 seconds.
Welcome. I've lived in cities around the world, Tokyo, Paris, Buenos Aires, Honolulu, Saigon, among others. Friendship Heights is home. My husband and I are celebrating 20 years here. I'm running for office based on what I believe in. The voters that put me on the council in 2015 agreed with me to reject plans to pave over Page Park. My signature issue continues to be green space that balances our extreme density. We have seen serious threats to our green space. That's why I wanted the council to retain a specialized land use attorney. I thank my colleagues for agreeing to do that. I've served the council as secretary, communications chair, and representative to the fire department. With your support, I'll continue this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Next, we have Melanie.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Melanie Rose White, and I thank you for taking part in our forum. I live in the Willoughby and have been a volunteer in our community for many years. I have served on the Village Council since 1993 as historian, secretary, and mayor. Much of what I do here focuses on communication. Each month, I edit the Village News. I also write part of the annual report and research and write program introductions. In June, I will have completed 2 years as chair of the Citizens Coordinating Committee on Friendship Heights. I am running again so that I can put my experience to work for our residents, making sure any future development is balanced, enhancing pedestrian safety on our urban streets, and collaborating with others as we develop more programs, services, and amenities for you, our taxpayers. I love our village, and I want to make sure it remains a terrific place to live and work. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Next, we have Michael Dorsey.
Michael, you can start his timer start on. Yeah, he needs to unmute. Yeah.
My apologies. Good evening. Let me start by asking for your vote and to thank you for the trust you have placed in me over the last 6 years. I am running for the council for many of the same reasons I ran 6 years ago. That is to advocate for a more progressive and proactive council by continuing to emphasize openness and transparency in all of our deliberations. Also, as an early leader in advocating for testing and vaccinating at the Village Center, I will continue to advocate for every age group to receive the vaccine at the Village Center as soon as possible. Thank you.
What?
Okay, thank you, Michael. Next, we have Carolina.
Good evening. My husband and I have lived at the Elizabeth condominium for 20 years. We have family and friends in the area and have made Friendship Heights our home. I've seen our community grow and change. It has become more exciting and more diverse. I want the village to prosper and to thrive. Before I was elected to the council, I honed my governance skills as a member of the Elizabeth Condo Board. I did so for 7 years. This gave me invaluable experience. I retired after a 40-year career managing international education projects and developing fundraising programs for nonprofits. I have extensive overseas experience working with a diversity of groups and cultures. I run for the council because I think that time is right for the council to reflect the evolving, diverse, and welcoming character of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Next, we will have Bruce, please. Hearing.
Yes, I was wondering what people thought of that blurb that I wrote for the League of Women Voters. The first thing I said was that I respond to the concerns. And I gave as examples safeguards at a dangerous crossing, hosting a squatter from Page Park, scheduling a bus on election day, and keeping the Saturday market open through the year. And the second point I made was that I led action to paint all our cast iron streetlights, plant about 15 new trees, and renovate the verges between the sidewalk and the street. If I were reading that, I would think to myself, isn't that what a council member is supposed to do? Yeah, it is. And so that's my campaign slogan. Vote for Bruce, he gets things done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Next, we'll hear from Al.
During the 26 years that I previously served on the Village Council as chairman and then its first mayor, and presently almost 20 years as chair of the council's advisory committee, my constant goal has been to reestablish a sense of community with a shuttle bus, with a community center, with artwork, concerts, lectures, and movies, with our first post office, with creation of Page and Willoughby parks, with planting of dozens of trees and erection of new improved streetlights. Now we need to look ahead and discuss new innovative ways we can best use our $5.5 million reserve fund to better serve our taxpayer residents. And I offer my record as a dedicated volunteer in our village for more than 45 years to help in this effort. I respectfully ask for your vote on May 10th so that we can work together to improve the quality of life for residents and businesses in Friendship Heights. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Michael Measy.
Thank you. Welcome to this evening. My name is Michael Measy. I am a retired university professor and dean, and I've lived here at 4620 for almost 7 years. For the last 2 years, I've served as chair of the Friendship Heights Village Council. As chair, I strive to run orderly and respectful council meetings. I also consult with the mayor, our excellent staff, and my council colleagues on day-to-day administrative issues, including our response to the pandemic. Last year, I formed the infrastructure committee that, as Bruce has indicated, has done such fine work beautifying our village. Looking to the future, I believe that our most important challenge is the revitalization of the Greater Friendship Heights neighborhood. I organized 2 recent council meetings dealing with this topic, participated in meetings with county planning staff on several issues related to the village, and participated in a Zoom meeting discussing the county's Thrive 2050 planning document. Last week, I represented the
Thank
village
you,
at a meeting
Michael.
organized by the DC Office of Planning to discuss the future of the DC portion of the Friendship Heights neighborhood, a topic with immediate implications for the quality of our
Thank
lives
you.
here in Friendship Heights Village. I'm sorry I've run over.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And lastly, we'll hear from Roger Cochetti.
First, I want to thank my fellow candidates for their agreeing to volunteer the amount of time they have into the work of the Friendship Heights Village Council and the village itself. My name is Roger Cochetti, and I live in the Willoughby North building. As some of you may know, I'm a relative newcomer to the village council, but not to Friendship Heights. For the past 30 years, I've lived within about a half a mile of here and helped raise 2 children in this neighborhood. I'm running for council because I'm concerned about the future of our neighborhood, much of which lies outside of the boundaries of the village. But we're facing a period the next few years of significant changes in the Friendship Heights area. And those changes will have a dramatic effect on our quality of life, on our property values, and on our safety. I won't go into my background. You can check out my background on my website, cochetti.us. But briefly, I've spent most of my career as a business
Thank
executive
you, Roger.
in the commercial space and internet industry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Could you please mute everybody? This is so distracting. Please mute everybody.
It is, don't know how to mute everybody. That's why we were hoping to do this. Let me see.
I might suggest, by the way, if you hear somebody, please ask them to mute, as we can see people, with their mute.
I believe as co-host, Diane, you can just click their little microphones when you pop up participants.
I have been.
Okay.
Okay. I am sorry that we can't mute everybody, and thank you for you candidates have been able to pick up muting and unmuting. So the first question for the evening comes from one of our submitted questions. Many of you have talked about development and growth, and you talk about how growth is balanced or maybe responsible for the Friendship Heights area. When you say you want development or growth that's balanced, what do you mean? And how does that vision of serve the interest for both healthy businesses and amenities, as well as the county's support for affordable and inclusive housing policies? So we want to know what kind of growth is balanced in your opinion, and how would that match up with business as well as affordable housing? I'm going to start with Roger. You have 60 seconds to answer.
Thank you. I don't want to pretend that I have a specific plan for growth in this area, but I do, from my experience in public affairs and business planning, have the tools to figure out what is that makes the most sense for us. I think the most important thing we need to do is go through a period of planning ourselves so that we have a clearer idea of how to balance what will surely be new development in this area that is needed with overdevelopment, which could work against our interests. So I think the balance in this.
Sorry, Nicole, you muted Roger too. Hang
Yeah.
on 1 second.
He has to unmute himself.
Okay,
I don't know, should I start again? I'm not sure what happened.
just finish the last part of what you were saying.
Okay. Only that I think what we need to do before we go marching to try to affect and have an impact on the direction of planning in Montgomery County and District of Columbia is go through a period of planning ourselves to get a better idea of what makes sense for us. Nobody's affected by what happens in this area more than we are. We need to go through a period of assessment and planning for identify what's in our interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Michael Dorsey, the same question. Balanced growth and the difference between healthy businesses, amenities, and how do you figure in affordable housing?
Well, thank you for the question. First, I'll address the growth within the footprint of the village of Friendship Heights. And as most of you know by now, we have the highest density of any community in the United States. So there's been a lot of pressure put on our village here to build additional high rises that will only make us more congested, more traffic, and less of a quality of life situation. In regards to businesses outside of our village footprint, what I believe we need there is a more diverse group of retail establishments that would serve our village residents better. We need more restaurants. We need more small shops. All of that is going to be very difficult with the high price of retail space today, but that's what we should advocate for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Next, Paula, the same question.
Well, I see two sides to this. There's development as far as increase in population and development on the business side. I think that with regard to development as far as housing and population goes, I think we're pretty much there. I don't think there's much more room. We've got our green space that balances our high rises. It's hard to imagine more buildings in this little area. With regard to businesses, I think the opposite's happening. We're losing businesses, and this is worrying. I think it's happening everywhere. I don't think it's just happening in Friendship Heights. I think it's a concern everywhere as we go more and more to buy online rather than going to stores. And this has affected us. There's no doubt about that. I'm hoping that we stabilize.
Thank you. Next, Michael Measy. Unmute yourself, Michael.
I'm working at it.
Okay.
Thank you. Like the previous speakers, I think that more density inside our village footprint is probably not a terrific idea. We're pretty crowded as it is. On the other hand, the part of our footprint that may be more vulnerable to development is on Wisconsin Avenue, where the county seems to have a strong interest in encouraging high rises along the major arteries. We need to work in those issues to make sure that our interests are protected in terms of congestion and views. At the same time, the revival of commercial life has to focus heavily on Wisconsin Avenue, particularly on the DC side. And my interactions with people from the DC side and the communities suggest that their interests and our interests are fairly closely aligned in terms of open space, the need for more commercial activity, and amenities to make life better, not just to build high-rise apartments for people.
Thank you. All right, Al, would you please answer the question?
Well, I think I'm the only candidate that actually was a part of the advisory group for the current sector plan. The sector plan was worked out by a group of diverse interests, residents, businesses, and they forged what we called a consensus plan. So the sector plan, the current sector plan, is really my definition of balanced growth. It indicates for the village that there would be what remains of open space, continued open space, and green space, and not further canyonization. Yes, we do have to try to have a firm, fair negotiation with developers. I personally negotiated an agreement with the Chevy Chase developers so that we retained a grocery store there. That is a contract between the Chevy Chase Land Company and the village. It's a 40-year contract. That required a great deal of negotiation, and I think my experience would help going forward to continue to have that sort of balanced growth.
Thank you. Next, Bruce, will you please answer the question?
Yeah, I'm glad that I came after Al, because I can also say that I think the Friendship Heights sector plan, even though it was adopted over 20 years ago in 1998, is still a reliable guide. The principles haven't changed. We're going to be a regional shopping center. We're going to be a transportation hub. There are going to be parks and open spaces. And I quote, regards our village. The fine residential neighborhoods surrounding the center will continue to be pleasant places to live, protected from commercial intrusion and traffic. And those are good principles. And I think they're widely shared by people in council now. It's important, though, I think, that we all get together and agree on our thrust. Let's not discuss it too long amongst ourselves. We want to be the mouse that roars.
Thank you. Next, Melanie White.
Yes, I think when you say what is balanced growth, I think it's growth that is compatible both in looks and use in the neighborhood. And that's why we had such strong pushback against the proposed development at 5550 Friendship. It certainly did not fit in with our neighborhood. Looking forward, I think that the county is going to continue its practice of putting development near metro stations. We see that with the Thrive Montgomery program that is currently under debate. Part of the problem with Thrive Montgomery is they talk about affordable housing, but it truly is not what they have proposed. And they also want to add multi-story buildings in single-family communities, which unless it is done extremely carefully, I think could be a disaster. So I would propose more retail, practical neighborhood shops in Friendship Heights.
Thank you. And Carolina.
Yes, I would agree with many of my colleagues. However, while I do understand that the 1998 sector plan has elements that are relevant, I would also note that the population, while the density has not changed, the quality of the population has diversified. At least I will speak for my building. There's a younger group, younger families with children, and I think as well as retirees such as myself. So I think the community has to take into account the fact that whatever business, whatever development evolves in this area has to respond to the needs of the community. Many of the businesses have come here, the corridor on Wisconsin Avenue, they did not respond to our needs. Our young families with kids in school do not respond to expensive restaurants. Restaurants themselves are not the answer. What is the answer are affordable supermarkets, affordable services for the communities that actually live here. And so from that context, I really would highlight that the diversity and the change and the constant change that this community is undergoing is critical.
Thank you. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about development and your ideas about what would be best for Friendship Heights Village. Next, there are a couple of questions about communicating with the residents of the village. Actually, there are two questions here, and I'm going to put them together because they're similar. One question says, because of the pandemic, this might be the moment to see what is most valued by our community and what will be most important to us in the next decade. Will you survey Friendship Heights residents as an integral component of your planning? For example, for new commercial retail that you spoke of, for housing, for services, and which amenities they use most and which other amenities they would like to see in the future. So the question is, would you seriously consider surveying residents? And I would ask, how do you think that would work? Let's make this only 30 seconds and I will ask the next communication question afterwards. So it is about surveying the residents of the village. I'm going to start with Paula this time.
Well, the answer is yes. I would survey the residents of this village. There might be several ways to do it. It can be done by building, for example, leaving the forms and letting people pick them up, or they can be mailed out.
Okay, thank you. Michael Measy, what do you say? Michael, you need to unmute yourself.
There we go. Clicker wasn't working. I agree we should do a survey, but more significantly, I think that I'd like the council to have some open meetings on the issue of commercial revitalization here in the Friendship Heights neighborhood and invite the community to attend those meetings. We've had 2 already. I'd like to have some more and have the community and residents participate in that discussion. Certainly we can have surveys, but I prefer the more direct approach.
Okay. Thank you. Al Muller.
Yes, I certainly support surveys. When I was on the council, we had at least 2 major surveys. A few hundred people responded concerning numerous topics, and it was very helpful. I think we need to do that again. We also need to expand our community advisory group, of which I chair for the last 20 years, because that brings in suggestions that maybe the council hasn't thought about. And that represents all of the buildings, has representatives or tries to from every building. Communication is definitely a very important topic going forward.
Okay, thank you. And Bruce Pierney.
I agree with the opinions expressed thus far. I think a survey well prepared, carefully presented might be a good idea, but I agree also with the chairman that there's nothing that replaces the in-person meetings. We need those too. And I think all of us, since the council, would like to get closer to the people.
Thank you. Melanie.
Yes, we love surveys in Friendship Heights. We just did one about 2 years ago on paper, asking people what they wanted to see as far as programming goes. If we were to do another survey, which I think we should as far as retail, I'd like to see us go a little more high tech so that it's easier to compile the data. And there is no substitute for in-person conversations. So I'd also like to combine a high-tech survey with one-on-one conversations with people.
Okay, thank you. And Carolina?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the survey and with meetings. What I really would emphasize is that the council needs to portray a sense of inclusiveness, which I think so far has been lacking. I think that many of the residents really sometimes don't even know what the building is for. They don't come to our sessions. And so I think it really is, I agree with my colleagues, groups are fine, but leadership of those groups has to rotate. It cannot evolve around one person or one individual. They have to rotate. Inclusiveness is is the name of the game.
Thank you. Roger?
Well, I agree with most of what both Michael and Melanie said, that I think a combination of more advanced electronic communications with people who live here and face-to-face meetings, which I think of as really sort of hearings. I'd add two thoughts to that. That one, I don't think that holding meetings in the village center is really the answer, because not everybody's going to go there. I think it's incumbent upon us to go out to the buildings. And secondly, I do think there's a role for what I would call sectoral hearings, where you have real estate agents, where you have restaurant owners, where you have sectors come in and give you their
Thank
views.
you. Okay, Michael Dorsey.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, certainly I would support that. And in my view, communication is paramount. And for those, many may know, but some may not, that we have a standing communications committee. And I believe a very good place to start structuring such a survey would be in an open communications committee meeting, whether it be Zoom, in person, or both. I think it would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, the other question was similar. I'm not going to ask you, but I would like you to know that there are questions about how to improve communication with the residents. You've mentioned meetings, attending meetings in person. You've mentioned a survey. Also, I know you have a website. I've gone to it. I think promoting the website so that everybody is aware of it and keeping it up to date is also very important. All right. Another question that came up, and I think one of you mentioned it, but I'd like to hear from all of you. The question is, how will you collaborate with the DC Planning Commission's plan to address the economic situation on the district side? I know Montgomery County has Thrive Montgomery, but what about cooperating with the district and their planning commission? Can you give us some ideas of how you would collaborate, how you think it's the best way to move forward on the district side? This time we'll start with Bruce.
I think it's an important question. You know, the village, I said the mouse that roars. We're between very large entities, over 1 million people in Montgomery County, over 700,000 in the district. If we want to make our voice heard at all, then we have to speak with one voice for the 4,000 we do have. And that Tenleytown to Friendship Heights corridor and the ambitions the DC Council has of extreme importance to us. We should be very interested.
Okay, thank you. Al Pierney? Sorry, Al Muller.
Yeah. Well, this is a complicated thing. We don't have much influence, to be blunt, with the district. Montgomery County has tried for 50 years to have a common cause, and they failed, and they're a bigger government. However, we do have a group of citizen coordinated, the Coordinating Committee on Friendship Heights. Our mayor, Melanie Rose White, is presently the chair of that. And I think there's where we have safety in numbers. We all on the Montgomery County side have a vested interest, and we need to work together. That's the only way we have influence, working together. Our numbers make the difference, not particularly what we can do as a government. We don't have zoning powers.
Thank you. Michael Measy? Unmute yourself.
I'm working at it. There we go. I think I've already made contact with some of the community leaders in the nearby wards who participated with me in the DC Office of Planning session last week. And they've indicated a willingness to work closely with us on these interests. And I would hope that I would We've already sort of tentatively asked them to come to one of our meetings to talk about their concerns, which, as I said before, are surprisingly parallel to our concerns. So I look forward to doing that.
Thank you. Paula?
I think I'm encouraged by everything I'm hearing. I think it's a really good idea to make overtures to the District of Columbia and to respond to the overtures that the district makes. I worked in the district and lived in this community. I think a lot of people are in the same situation, and it makes absolute sense.
Thank you. Michael Dorsey?
Yes, thank you for the question. I agree with what has been said by others. I do believe the first step should be to, as others have said, to invite representatives of DC to meet with us in a face-to-face setting. And in my view, I have dealt with the DC Council in one of my former jobs. You need to build the trust with the representatives that they have, and I feel like we'd be more likely to get their support in an effort to work together. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Roger, please. Before you begin, Roger, can you other candidates please mute yourselves?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What?
I asked the other candidates who just spoke to please mute themselves.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Roger.
As I mentioned in the comment I made earlier, I think the first step is we need to have a clearer idea of what it is we would like to happen on the DC side of Friendship Heights. If we move into this just sort of, with a vague idea or vague notions, our ability likely to have an impact is going to be diminished. So the first step has got to be to clarify to our own hearing and research and consultative process what it is we want. I think if we can come forward with some clear objectives and some clear lines that we think should not be crossed, we have a great opportunity to have an impact. And there are lots of tools to do that, but we could talk about that separately.
Okay, thank you. Carolina.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think the Urban Land Institute and the DC Office of Planning Partners have developed a very interesting complex for the DC, Friendship Heights DC, which is what Michael's referring to. I think what Al Muller's referring to as well is extremely valuable. I agree with Roger from the perspective that we need to work on a strategic plan of action. That is to say, understand what our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats are as a community, so that we can understand what we need from the perspective of Friendship Heights. It is good to participate, to have a seat at the table at all these groups, but we have to have a clear idea of what it is that we want. We cannot always be sounding and exploring. We have to know what we want. Thank you.
Thank you. And Melanie.
Yes, to piggyback onto what Al spoke about with the Citizens Coordinating Committee on Friendship Heights, that is a coalition of 24 local communities and associations, many of which border DC, so they are heavily involved in what happens in the Friendship Heights side of, the DC side of Friendship Heights. I'd like to see us have monthly roundtables once we can narrow down what it is we'd like to see in DC, and really keep that collaboration going in conjunction with the CCCFH.
Okay, thank you. So I think while development, while a balanced growth, collaboration with the county and DC are all good things, and we're hoping that you work that way. My next question is, what do you think are the biggest challenges to getting some of these ideas put into place? What are the challenges for getting things done in the village? You might have great ideas, but somehow they don't always pan out. So I'd like to hear maybe 2 or 3, not ideas, issues that keep you from moving forward. And for this timer, Nicole, will you give them 60 seconds? So what do you think are the biggest challenges to getting things done in the village? This time we'll start with Michael Measy.
Michael is mute.
I know. Nicole, can you help Michael? He has unmuted before. I don't know why. Okay, you're on.
There we are. I don't know why we're struggling here. I think there are a couple of things that are barriers. We've talked about communication, and I think that's one of the issues. And I think the idea of talking with through the communications committee about how we can enhance communication with our residents is helpful. I think the second thing is that we need more active citizen participation. I think that will help us to move forward as well. For example, somebody has mentioned the fact that we have a very large reserve. I'd like to see us involve the community in how we might be able to devote those dollars to particular projects that enhance our community. I think finally, in terms of the operation of the council, our committee system has fallen into disuse, and we do too many things right at the council meeting. I think we need to process new ideas through committee processes before they come to the council.
Okay, thank you. What are your ideas, Al Muller?
Well, I can only use the past as sort of a reference point, the good and the bad. And I think the reason the council was so successful when I was its leader for 26 years was we had new ideas and we were willing to work together to implement them. We have a marvelous village with a lot of talent. We have enough money to do anything. What I think we lack are the collaborative skills so that we work together to find consensus rather than everyone having a good idea and running off in different directions. It's a challenge within, and frankly, I think we have more good work that we can do within the village than trying to get the developers to do the right thing in the District of Columbia.
Okay, thank you. Next, Bruce Pierney.
I really welcome this opportunity. The chairman said something I think is of great importance. In my experience, the committees need to be better developed. They need to do the analysis. They need to work out the problems. They need to lay out the options. They need to make recommendations and then bring it to the council. You cannot expect 7 people meeting around the table to thrash things out. The groundwork has to be done. The council is a deliberative body. What it lacks, the chairman's got this exactly right, is that preliminary work, that groundwork, that basic fundamental work that really can only be done in committees. That's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Melanie White, what are the challenges?
I think one of the challenges is that we might have a bit of a PR problem here with the Village Center. I've talked with residents in my building, and so many of them still think that it's a senior citizen center because they see a lot of seniors during the day out and about. And our staff, in particular, Ann O'Neill, has done a fabulous job during the last couple of years, bringing in more children and families. And I think the more people see that, the more they'll realize that this is a community center for everyone, a village center. And the other challenge that we have is that people are simply stressed out and they lack time to volunteer. It was not always like that, but with today's lifestyle, people their time is precious. And our challenges often stem from not being able to tap into people's free time. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolina, what are the challenges facing
Yes.
you?
I think the challenges are great. I think the greatest challenge is isolation. The greatest isolation, but by that I mean the center being isolated from or removed from the community. That's one great challenge. I think I agree with Bruce. I agree with Michael Measy that the committees really have to be very dynamic, inclusive, and we have a pool of excellent, beautifully educated individuals in the village. Let's tap those resources. I think the other issue is trust. We really have to instill in the village residents that the center belongs to them. It's not the product of any one individual. It belongs to them. It's dynamic. It evolves. It serves young and old, and especially in the after COVID, we really have to be. It's a new dynamic. It's a new center. The lessons from the past are interesting, but this is a new world. We need to be a lot more inclusive, a lot more dynamic. We have to evolve with the community. Thank you.
Okay. And Roger, what are the biggest challenges for getting things done in the village?
I would point to two things that I think are important, and one repeats what I've said before, and that is, first of all, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, as the saying goes. And we need to have a crisper idea of what it is we want, particularly in the area of the development of the Friendship Heights neighborhood. Secondly, there's a topic we've been sort of all skirting around, and that is identity. In other words, how many people in the village think of themselves as a Friendship Heights Village citizen? And the answer to that has a lot to do with what do we do for them that makes a difference to them? And if the answer is not a lot, we do things that make a difference to a few people, and those people will have some sense of identity. So it's building on our need to create a sense of identity by doing things. And one of the things we can do for the people of the village is represent them to Rockville and DC in a way that serves their interest.
Thank you. Michael Dorsey, tell us your opinion.
Thank you. Yes, I believe that we need to embrace, as a council, willingness to be proactive and on issues related to quality of life here in the village. And I would point to, some issues about trees and grass and painting poles. It took years to get that done. I want to compliment Council Member Bruce Perney for chairing that committee, which the committee came together and put together a very professional approach to that. I would like to see the day when we're proactive enough that it doesn't take years to get that done. I think we can do that. It just takes a willingness to embrace it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Paula Durbin.
If I understand the question, you're talking about going beyond the village or beyond the center.
The question was that what would be the 2 or 3 biggest challenges to getting things done in the village? Why aren't things moving forward?
I think things move forward pretty well. I would say that there might be some isolation when that happens, but I think that the village is really running very well. I can't fault very much that's going on.
Okay, fine. It was just to see if there were any challenges that any of the candidates might be able to demonstrate that the voters would be interested in perhaps even helping with. But thank you. All right, let's move on to, can you please mute yourself, Paula? Thank you. For 30 seconds only, can you, given no barriers, no challenges, all the money you need, what would be the one issue or project that you would like to work on in the next year or two? Give us the most important project that you would like to work on, giving without any impediments like money or political will. What would be the big issue that you would work on? And we will start this time. 30 seconds, please. Alfred, Al. One big issue.
Yeah, I have so many issues, it's hard to pick one. If I had to pick one, it would be to purchase additional property so we could use it for new amenities, especially for those who are not seniors, and at the same time enable us to control the development in that area in the same way that we hope the sector plan would. So it would be to purchase new property. There are a few properties that are trying to build high rises. I would try to purchase them instead for village use by the citizens.
Okay, thank you. And one project from you, Paula, Durbin.
I don't think I can top what Al said. I think that's one idea. When I look at what the village bought in the past, purchased in the past, and I'm sure there were objections. I'm sure people thought this was crazy, but look what we've done with it. So I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you. Michael Dorsey, what would be the biggest, the project you would like to work on?
Thank you for the question. It would be something that has been an issue in the village for 6 years, and that is a Page Park. If I had all the money and time and so forth, I would use that for a professional approach, similar to the one Councilmember Perney used with the Infrastructure Committee on some of those issues to accomplish a state-of-the-art park at Page Park to bring some equity to amongst the 3 parks that we have.
Okay, thank you. Michael Measy.
Well, I'd be interested in the possibility of purchasing property, although it may be that we have some legal limitations on what we're allowed to do in that respect. But that's for another story, another time. I would like to, I think there are ways in which we can expand our services to the community. And I'd like to going back to the earlier question, I'd like to ask the community what they would like us to do that we're not currently doing, and see if we can't use some of our resources to respond to those demands.
Okay, thank you. Roger, what would be the project you would like?
Nothing will have a greater impact on our quality of life, our property values, and our safety than the massive redevelopment that's going to be taking place in the next few years from Geico to Saks to Rodman's. The area is going to go through major changes. The DC government, the Montgomery County government already committed to it. We are in the middle of it, and nobody will be more affected by it than us. To me, it's obvious this has to be a top priority for us, even though most of the redevelopment will take place outside of our technical boundaries.
Right. Okay, Carolina, what would be your project?
Well, my premise would be know thyself. And I go back to the necessity to know who we are, what we stand for, what our needs are, and the landscape that Roger offers, that all this massive change is going to come about. I think unless we know what our needs are, who we are, and what we stand for, and what Friendship Heights is all about, and our quality of life is about, I think unless we know who we are, we're not going to be able to deal with whatever's coming our way and act as a unit, act as a group that belongs, that is part of a whole. And this is what the community lacks right now.
Thank you.
Sensing that we're a whole.
Melanie.
Yes, I think that after tying in with what Michael Measy said, asking residents what they would like us to do for them, I can't help but think the spotlight comes back to this building, the Village Center. And if I had unlimited funds, I would love to look into putting the money back into the center so that we can offer additional services and amenities, whether that be health related, job training, whatever the village residents can think that they would like us to offer.
Okay, thank you. And Bruce Pierney, what would
Well,
be?
I love this question because the means are unconstrained. I would buy every square inch of parcel 6. That's the last land to be developed, really. And it's across the road from the Carlton where I live. And once we had that land, I would build everything imaginable. There'd be a magnificent park, there'd be an artist studio, there'd be billiard tables, anything your heart desires on that land is parcel 6.
Okay, thank you very much. These are interesting ideas and reactions to the question. And as you can see, there's a nice variety and much to think about. Okay, now I see that it's 3 minutes to 8. We said that this forum would last 1 hour. So now we're going to move to closing statements. And again, this is in random order. I am going to select you, and according to my sheet here, you will have 60 seconds to close and give your remarks about what's important to you and why people should vote for you. We're going to start with Michael Dorsey.
Thank you. Let me close by saying that I want to improve on the amenities that we enjoyed today that were instituted under the former mayor, Alfred Muller, and many residents who supported his initiatives. Their past leadership is unparalleled, and we shouldn't rest on their laurels. Having said that, I will continue to promote a more equitable distribution of funds between all 3 village parks with an emphasis on Page Park. Thank you, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Michael Dorsey. Next, we'll have Paula Durbin.
I've already spoken about my priority on green space. I also value access to information, and I feel that as a member of the public, I actually contributed to to information being more accessible. I hope people will take advantage of this. I'm responsible for the production of the minutes. They end up on our website. The minutes are always there. They go back and back and back, and I hope people will take advantage of these resources and that they'll return me to the council in May.
Thank you. We will next go to Michael Measy for your closing statement.
There we go. I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. It's been, I think, a very informative session and one I've learned a great deal from. I want to end by emphasizing one of the things I tried to specialize in, and we all try to look at things that we like to do best in Bruce's work on infrastructure, for example. What I've tried to concentrate on a great deal is our relationship with the larger community, with Montgomery County, with the state. I serve on the Maryland Municipal League's Legislative Committee, go to Annapolis or Zoom to Annapolis to cooperate with other groups in Montgomery County, in the state, on how we can influence legislation. And it's been something important for us and something important for the community. I think in this connection, cooperating with the various forces, community groups in DC, cooperating with the Chevy Chase Friendship Heights Coordinating Network, bringing us all together will help us and strengthen our position. One last word. It's been an honor serving with these people on this council. I think they're a dedicated group of people, and I hope to continue working with them in the future.
Thank you. Okay, Al Muller.
It was my privilege to serve as your mayor on the council for 26 years. I led our community as we worked together to implement new ideas: a shuttle bus, a village center, new parks and trees, new street lights for enhanced security, and numerous cultural amenities such as art shows, lectures, concerts, movies, and bus trips, our first post office. Now I ask for your support so that I can continue serving you and introduce new ideas to build on Friendship Heights' unique potential. I believe this village is a special place to live and to work, and I ask for the privilege of using my historical memory and creative energy to help maintain and strengthen that tradition. Thank you for listening today. Please vote on May 10th.
Thank you. Bruce Pierney.
Thanks to the league for hosting this event. Al Miller is my college classmate and a friend of mine. He's a founding father of this village as we know her. I'm fond of him, but he's also a dangerous man to know. Al approached me and he said, "You should run for the council." He says, "It's one short meeting and just once a month." And I'm just starting to forgive him, right? I came onto the council. I had no idea what was going on. I was green as grass, but I caught on. Now I look around and see what we managed to do together. The newly painted streetlights shining in the sun, the young trees, they're budding in the spring, the freshly laid sod. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yeah. My campaign slogan again, vote for Bruce. It gets things done.
Thank you. Melanie White.
I hope that tonight's forum has provided you with greater insight into each candidate. I try to bring the same degree of professionalism and a strong work ethic to this volunteer position as in my 9-to-5 job. Our village has long held the distinction of being the jewel of Montgomery County, but we can always find new ways to improve our neighborhood for both residents and businesses. Working in conjunction with my fellow council members and our staff, if I am reelected, I look forward to focusing on ensuring any future development is done right, that we find efficient ways to streamline communication, that your tax dollars are spent wisely, and that residents of all ages can find programs and amenities that benefit them. It may take some time, but I look forward to seeing our community bustling again on the other side of COVID. On May 10th, I respectfully ask for your vote, and I thank you for your support.
Thank you. Carolina.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to serve in the council since 2017. I've been an active member of the council's Infrastructure and Communications Committee and working with colleagues and staff members. We've improved the village street lighting. We've created in March 2020 a dedicated COVID information page on the center's website. We've explored the effectiveness of food trucks in the village during the quarantine. These are a few ideas that are worth exploring. Again, things are changing, things are evolving, and we have to be bold to look at what comes ahead. The new normal calls for fresh ideas, new alliances, moving forward, I would like us to again assess the exodus of retail business in our area, call for the best and the brightest in our community to serve in our committees. And unfortunately, the shortness of time, we have not been able to tell all we do. I'm an avid photographer. I encourage everyone who's attended here to do a Google search on all of us, and you will find the richness of our activities, our websites, where we've been, what we've done. And so please, don't forget that Google's there, because I have a nice website, and so please go for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Roger Cochetti.
Well, I bring all of the strengths and weaknesses of a newcomer to this election. As somebody who has not been closely involved with the council, I am perfectly happy to suggest ideas that have been tried before, and people will tell me we've tried that and it didn't work, but I'm also quite capable of suggesting things again or new ideas. As somebody who spent a good chunk of his career doing strategic business planning for ComSat and IBM, the kind of questions I ask are like the following. If you had to go to the residents of Somerset House or Wisconsin Place and make the case to them, why should we redraw the boundaries so that you can be part of Friendship Heights Village? What would you say we do for you? What is the value that we create for you that would want you to be part of Friendship Heights Village? And I think the answer is we're not clear on that, but that's where we need to identify where we create value for the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm hoping that all of you who participated got a good idea of who the candidates are, so that you'll be able to vote if you haven't already. Thank you to all the candidates and to you, the voters of Friendship Heights. Please remember to complete your mail-in ballot and return it via postal mail or drop it in the drop box at the Village Center. No matter how you return your ballot, we must receive it at the post office on May 10th or in the drop box on May 10th by 8 p.m. Remember, by 8 p.m. on Monday, May 10th. Good night to all and stay safe. Thank you.